Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, even according to wherever you are in the world right now. My name's Louisa Munson. I'm joined here by my good friend Rick Pursell from Bali. Oh, you're not from Bali, but that's where you're living. I'm joining you from Lisbon. Now, you might notice it looks like I'm sat in a kitchen, but actually these are patio doors behind me, and you've got a perfect reflection of this. You can see my hand. You can see the reflection of the rather swish and swanky place that we're staying in at the moment. We're staying in a really lovely resort in Cascais called the Martinel Resort, and I've sat here deliberately, so hopefully you'll get to see the sunrise and you'll see the beautiful gardens behind me as my mirrored background turns into almost like a window. You can see behind Rick, he sat in the beautiful glaring sunshine. How is it there today, Rick?
It's glaring, sunny and glaring. Always welcome. We are getting a little bit of rain now and again, but nothing monsoonal at all. But just beautiful clear mornings, and it's lovely.
It's
and
so
today,
though,
for anybody that doesn't know, is the equinox. So you are about to go into your autumn or fall equinox, and we don't get one because we only have two seasons here.
Yeah.
But in Australia, further south, and New Zealand, our friends in New Zealand, they will be bringing in and celebrating the spring equinox down there. But close to the border, it's basically two seasons. It's rainy or sunny, hot or wet, dry or wet.
But what a gorgeous place that you live in. I mean, one of the things I loved about it was just how lush and green it was. And so when I moved back from Bali, I was really delighted that Carl wanted us to live in Devon, which is really rainy and beautifully green and hilly. So it really reminded me of Bali. She's really gorgeous. Yes, you're right. It is Equinox Day today. And it's so funny because we always have a little chat, don't we, before our shows to just discuss what we're going to talk about. And I didn't even mention the equinox. And like yesterday, I did 3 shows related to the equinox. So I don't know why it didn't even come up. But yes, we're entering into a new season, a new start. And it's been a couple of weeks, isn't it, since we've last spoken?
It has, yes, because you were sort of traveling and dismantling part of your life.
Yes. So I thought today maybe we could have a little chat around what's been going on for us and how it kind of links into new starts. Because the funny thing is, it is the autumn season in Europe as of today. And I'm actually moving into a new home and signing a contract, a new 3-year contract, which is going to be a real relief actually to commit to somewhere for 3 years as a minimum. I'm really looking forward to it. So what have you been up to, Rick? What's going on? What's on your radar right now?
Well, the equinox for us not only implies a change of seasons, but I'm launching what we've termed as a wisdom council, together with an English woman. We are providing counsel for conscious organizations, and in this particular the one, it's the Seeds Samara organization. And these two organizations basically birthing what is called the regenerative renaissance. Like nature renews and regenerates itself, we are renewing and regenerating humanity, becoming more heart-centered and looking after the earth in simple terms. And it's a renaissance because it's doing something completely different, as was in Europe in the Middle Ages. So this is not repeating the same old stuff, as Einstein tells us is insanity. We're broaching into brand new areas, and it's agriculture, education, governance, finance. Everything is being turned upside down to be part of this regenerative renaissance. And my contribution to it is from the perspective of how can we shine the light of consciousness onto into this field of Renaissance. So it's been fun. I've been doing a lot of writing. I virtually haven't left this office. Well, I do go home, which is a whopping 15 steps away.
I was going to say, you are actually in
one
your
hell
home.
of a commute. I have
And
to
you've
stop
got,
and wait for the ants now and again, and if it's raining, I can get wet.
yeah. Yeah, and you would get soaked in those 15 steps, you know, if it was like
Yes.
barley lunchtime rain.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds incredible. So regenerative renaissance. It's not exactly it's a bit it's a bit of a tongue tie, isn't it? A tongue
It is.
twist. You,
It
you couldn't
is.
say that like 5 times really fast. Regenerative renaissance. But it sounds like it's really well needed. And it sounds like it's been very sort of like time consuming, because how do you have the confidence to get involved in a project like that? Because I know
Go
you're
ahead.
well skilled and stuff, but even the most courageous souls are going to have moments where they think, "Wow, that's so huge. Am I big enough, or am I good enough for this project?" Or maybe that's what I would be thinking. Did you have those kind of moments where you think, "Wow, this is so bold. Am I up to it?"
Well, I've run about 2,000 hours of retreats, and that was basically me, supported by our staff and my wife and
Yeah.
all of the infrastructure that goes with it. But basically, it was me delivering these retreats over a 10-year period. And then I felt almost compelled to step into a bigger game, to get a
Yeah.
bigger audience, so that the impact that I could create would have a further reach.
Yeah.
And I think this has been the next step. So it's not a matter of just jumping into some infinite pool of challenges. I've been dipping my feet in gradually over the years, and in the
Oh, I hope you come back, Rick. Oh, please come back. That was such a great part of our conversation that you were talking about there. I actually completely appreciate where you're coming from, if I may interject, because you haven't just been dipping your feet in, you've actually been steadily working and walking down a particular path. And, I asked that question, knowing full well that you already have been walking down that path. So what I'm hearing, and obviously what I'm not hearing right now, because Rick's like being thrown out of the show or something, but what I'm really hearing is that Rick has been going down a particular path, and he's almost been apprenticing himself for the last decade or so, and working in a particular direction. And then often when we do quite a lot and work really hard and consistently in an area, we get mastery in some way. We get so much better, and we inevitably go in deeper, and in a really like full and rich way. So I'm really delighted that Rick is doing this, and he's getting recognized for his work, because he is absolutely tireless in spiritual development and absolute beautiful growth. Rick, I was finishing off your sentence there. I hope you don't mind.
Tell me what you said, because we lost the internet. The internet's been really good the last couple of weeks. So
and I've come
we
and used it
definitely
once
have
today.
cyber gremlins watching our activity.
Yes, it's funny, isn't it?
It is.
I do get that with some people. It's funny. It's almost like, whoa, the light or the sort of intention between us must create some kind of energy, and maybe a lag as well. I don't know. What I was saying, Rick, was you were saying that you've been dipping your feet in, and actually what I said was, from my perspective, you've actually been walking the path for a good decade, and beyond that. And when you go down a path, and when you put in your time, your energy, your commitment into something, you inevitably get to a stage where the next step becomes possible, and where you go deeper into the richness of it, and it just starts happening itself, like the life starts pulling you in. So it sounds like you've almost done an apprenticeship, and that this is actually your real role. Do you know what I mean? Like the deepening of who you are, and what you're about. How does that sound? If I just completely
No,
made up something?
It's pretty accurate. I consciously started treading my path when I was 26,
Yeah, I
having
mean, that's
emerged
really,
from the
no
Vietnam
offense.
War.
No offense. That's almost half a century, isn't it?
That's almost half a century. So, and I've only got to here. So, and the more I learn and know, the more I realize how little I know.
Yeah.
But it's been a long journey. It's been a fabulous journey. And I think what you were implying is that the longer you've been on the journey, the more confident you are about taking that next step. So I'm bolstered with almost 50 years of spiritual endeavors, if we wish,
Yeah, that's a
and
good word.
life experiences and
Yeah.
challenges and ups and downs. And I'm still here.
Yeah.
I've survived that, and I'm taking myself from a really, really bad place to where I feel now, which is a really, really good place.
Yeah.
So if that's the net end result of my efforts, then it doesn't take a lot of courage to take the next step and continue on that path
Yeah.
towards becoming a better version of me.
Yeah, I can see your perspective there. I mean, when you look at it from the perspective of 50 years, I imagine that your journey, and your route with spirituality has probably evolved and changed quite a bit. I mean, I don't know if it has, but I know from my own perspective, there are moments where I'm kind of on my path, and then there are moments where I'm like, how's this working for me? Not sure. And then you kind of dip back into, it's like I say, normality with bunny ears, and I start sort of like indulging in being really sort of like neurotypical, like really typical human. And that's not to say that when you're in the sort of like spiritual mindset that you're not a typical human, but you know what I mean. Like I sort of start indulging in things that I think are distractions. So I don't start thinking, hang on, where's my purpose? What should I be doing? And I imagine in 50 years, you must also, or almost 50 years, you must also have seen so many different trends and changes in the way that humans are expressing themselves and thinking.
Very much. Yeah.
That time has incorporated some really damn good music, hasn't it?
Oh, yes.
The late
Yes.
70s glam rock.
Yes.
Being one.
Yes. Enormous changes
Yeah.
right across the board. So obviously, each generation builds upon the last generation. So where my parents led a very, very simple life on the farm and
Yes.
with their work, technology has allowed us to venture into much different ways of living.
Yeah.
And we haven't conquered outer space, but we've left the conquering of the inner space. It's lagging behind.
Yeah.
So we need, at this juncture, I think it well behooves us to stop and keep reaching out for something else, and just go into the inner space. And then when we do that, we find that everything that we were looking for, everything that we were experiencing in our outer world, pales into insignificance almost to what is occurring on the inside and the inner world, the inner journey. And the journey that is most prominent is the journey from the head to the heart, as Joseph Campbell says, the 18-inch journey, the hero's journey, the heroine's journey. So, yes, dabbled in many different areas, different philosophies, different religions, tested the water with different processes coming and going. And now there's virtually only one, and that is to
love
the direct self-inquiry into who I am and what am I to do. So I once went off that path and lost everything I had. A house, block of land overlooking the ocean in Australia, a car, brand new 4-wheel drive Toyota, lost it all. And we were penniless because I had gone down a track that was off my purpose line. That turned out to be a fabulous, fabulous lesson, because since that day, I have never, ever strayed. And I've been offered some very glamorous jobs and some very big pots of gold to go pursue. And I've just walked away from them, said, thank you very much. I'm honored that you would consider me, but it's not on my purpose line. It's not why I came into this world. It's not aligned or in coherence with my life purpose. So therefore, I'm going to graciously decline your offer. And that's been my philosophy since those early days, which served me very well.
Can I just check, when you gratefully declined those offers, did you find that better, more authentic, more aligned offers came in? Because when I was before I met Carl, and during my 30s, when I got the chance to date, I would almost hold on to the opportunity rather than use discernment and say, yeah, you're not really a good match, but thank you anyway. And then just before I met him, I started recognizing that, you know what, if something's not a match, it's not going to work. And I was just fearlessly dating and fearlessly going on these lovely dates and saying, that was lovely. Thank you so much. Good luck on your journey.
Yes. Yeah.
And what I was noticing is there was this huge uplift of the guys I was dating. And then I met Carl, and obviously our vibration was working because we're still around, 11 years on, and with a really sort of like kind of growing up, like family that's growing up and whatnot. So, as I was letting go of things that wasn't really for me, what was for me sort of really came into sight. Is that how it was with you in your career and your life opportunities?
Yes, it is. But let me just take you back to the moment, because I remember doing a process with you, and it was for you to define your values, right, and finding somebody to match those values, and then also to describe your ideal man and to go crazy, go mad on it. And I watched you light up as you did that, and just connected to, this is really the ideal man. The perfect man obviously doesn't exist, right? Or the perfect woman, but we can know exactly as you've described on your first or second date. If you were to ask the question, well, what is important for you? What are your values? And that person has no idea, or says, well, I want to be a multimillionaire by the time I'm 35. There's going to be a mismatch, particularly with your personality.
Definitely with my personality.
So I was so delighted after you went back to England and you said you met Carl, and I said, wow, if you are so deserving of that.
Oh,
so
thank you
deserving.
so much.
Yes.
I mean, the funny thing is, what came out from like looking at values together in terms of a partner was the acceptance that actually the relationship I'd had for a long time had worked in so many different ways, but it really wasn't lacking on the whole values. There was a whole part of my life that was shut down to remain in that relationship, and that was the part of my life that wanted to give back to others, that wanted to volunteer, that wanted to I don't know, gift my energy in some way, and really work to help people in a way that wasn't just helping, businesses get richer or something, that wasn't work focused. And the other thing was being with someone who was light and with a really good sense of humor, and someone that was always ready to laugh and explore and enjoy. And that's definitely what I got with Carl.
Yes.
And it wouldn't have happened any other way. I don't think so. Thank you so much for your excellent coaching. I can totally recommend it. It's life-changing.
Very good. So let me ask you,
Go on.
bounce back to you. What has been happening in your life for the last month or so?
Well, it kind of ties in actually with what we've been saying. Because actually one thing that I didn't just share then about with Carl and, with writing the kind of identity list of what you need in a partner, like my list originally was, that it was obviously a man, because that's the way I'm wired, and I wanted to have a child or more. So I was looking for a man who, and in my head, this man had never been married before and had never had children before. In my head, I was going to be marrying somebody who was fresh and ready for me, and that's the only way I could imagine it in my head. And the funny thing is, Carl, he had been internet dating up until that point. And on his list, he was looking for somebody who didn't want to have children, somebody, because he already had them and he's already done the marriage thing. But when we met, irrespective of those details, we were still a good vibrational match. But if we'd have gone on our dating profiles, we'd have never connected. And that's the thing that really struck me, was you never actually really know what's for you, because life might actually know better. And in this case of my marriage, life definitely knew better. And this is what Carl and I have been doing for the last 10 years or so. Since we've got together, we've at some level been looking for our home and a place to settle, and the knowledge that we're home. And when we were in England, it was kind of settled for us because Carl had this amazing job, which also offered us accommodation, and it really fitted our values at that time. It was really, really good. And so, our purpose and our home and this amazing environment was just perfect for us, and it felt great. And then we moved to Portugal because we had this extra goal of wanting to be quite self-sufficient, wanting to be a bit sort of like preppery, to prepare, to be ready for whatever life throws at us. And we really wanted some land, and we really also wanted to be able to look after our children and work at the same time. And we recognized that if we were going to stay in the UK, we couldn't do that. It costs so much money that most couples have to work more than full time, just to keep a house going. And so it just didn't seem very much like it was going to work with our dream lifestyle. And so we came out here. It's a cheaper way of life, and it's got more of a family focus. We thought it was a good match. And we've been out here for 4 years, literally last week. And in that time, we've added another child, as you know. And we've also moved around quite a bit. And initially we were moving around because we wanted to find the right area and know where we were going. But then during that time, we also needed to, our source of money dried up. So the job that Carl was doing came to an end, and we both needed to busk in real time and set up our careers. And so it's been quite a difficult time, sort of feeling aligned to what we're doing and knowing that we're here to kind of settle down. And yet it's kind of eluded us, as we were getting close to where we wanted to be, the job kind of went, and it's like, oh my goodness. And then we couldn't afford to actually buy a house anyway. And so, yeah, we've moved around a lot, and different opportunities have come up to us. And we recently accepted one where we would share a home with somebody, and kind of be part of each other's community in some way. And I'm quite specific about things, sometimes a bit too much. And, I really wanted to know, what does that entail? And it was glossed over, in a very sort of, this is a magical thing, and we need to really, if we're specifying things, it's going to reduce our opportunities and stuff like that. And so I actually went against my moral compass a little bit and kind of just dived right in. And it turns out that it didn't really work. At some level, our values just weren't a very good match. And so we started looking around for another house, somewhere to stay. And actually, what's happened is we moved out of where we were living, and there's a gap of 2 weeks that we needed to fill somehow, almost like refugees, before we could move into this new house. And so actually what's happened is, through the shock and trauma of all these moves and needing to move quickly all of a sudden, we considered a house that wasn't on our list and would never have come up because of our list of wanting to be in the country, wanting lots of land to be able to prep, wanting a well, wanting this, that, and the other. And actually, whilst we were looking for that, we couldn't find anything where we felt there was a sense of community, where there were children that we might be able to meet and our kids would play with. There were lots of things that we just couldn't join up. And so literally at the last minute, we were moving out of where we were living, and we had the delivery guy booked, and we said, okay, nothing has come up. We're just going to have to trust life and trust fate and everything. And we had it sort of like booked that our stuff was going to go into storage, and that we would be on an indefinite holiday until we find a place to stay. And so that's where we were going. And it was a bit of a sacrifice on our part, because we were thinking, wow, could be exciting. It could also be really tiring and everything, because we're both working from home and educating the kids and having fun as well. And it could be expensive. And when we made that choice, literally the day before the delivery guy was turning up to, take our stuff, Carl went to have food and have a meeting with somebody, saw an old friend who had been on the phone to an old friend who Carl also knows. And there was this story that came up that there was this house available, and it was one that we'd known about but kind of discounted because it didn't have the land that we were after, and it was a lot more money than we were expecting to pay. But all of a sudden it was back on our radar. And then right at the last minute, we were invited to go and have a look at it at 10 o'clock at night. So we went over at 10 o'clock at night and we had a look, and it was just what we wanted. And it's crazy because we'd never have looked at it. It's in suburbia, which is really not us, We were thinking, I remember when I met Carl, oh, let's go and live in suburbia. And he's like, why would we want to do that? But there's this lovely house, 3 to 4 bedrooms, and we can walk to the beach, our favorite beach, it turns out, the one that we'd always earmarked and thought we can't afford to live here. It's got a big kitchen, it's got enough space for an office, we can walk to so many different things. And that was another thing, we always wanted to just be able to walk everywhere, and now we've got the chance to walk everywhere. There's neighbours, and they're young neighbours, I think, so there's an opportunity for us to actually grow as a family and connect and stuff. But what there isn't a load of land, and there's not a well. And yet that doesn't really worry us. It's bizarre. What we have got is a backyard, and it's not a huge backyard, but we realised that our next challenge is to grow an organic permaculture backyard, which is going to be really fun. And actually it's probably going to be more manageable because, we don't have much time. So it's going to be really easy to water. So we've had to drop the prepping idea, and that seems to be the thing that's taken us on this long, circuitous route, trying to find a house, because all these houses in the country, they're all knackered, and they've all got massive damp issues, and then they've got septic tank issues, and there's all these kind of big issues, and there's forest fires and all sorts. And now we can just move into a house, and it doesn't really need any work. We can literally we're moving today. And here's the other bit of our story, because it's a bit of a long one. Once we found that house and said, okay, we're going to move in, the people were moving out the next day. And so they said, our garage is free. You can put all of your belongings straight into the garage. And then
amazing.
I know. And then we weren't exactly sure where we were going to go. And then we've got a couple of, some friends in Lisbon that have a flat, and they said, we're going on holiday. We're going on holiday tomorrow for like 10 days. Come and stay. And so it all worked out. We had all these offers, and literally for the 2 weeks that we were homeless, we've had these great offers. And literally today, we're just going to drive back to our new home. All our stuff is already there. All we've got to do is move it in. But would we have found that? Probably not. Yes, and that's because we had this list of what our ideal looked like. and not actually how we wanted to feel. And already when I think of that house, I feel like I'm home. And that's been the thing that's eluded us the whole time. So there you go. That's kind of what's been on our radar.
Beautiful,
I think we're
beautiful.
finding home. And yeah, I do wonder, oh, maybe the world doesn't want me to prep. But
Or, or
who knows?
maybe you've all these years you've been prepping has been prepping you for this moment.
Who knows? But I have this really strong feeling that all is going to just unfold perfectly. Yeah, it just, and the funny thing is, when I was in the house that wasn't working, my work started to like, my work was like, I believe the work I was doing was like this, like going up, but the orders coming in were starting to kind of go down. And then the day we left, I started getting orders again. And so it's a really strong sign that something is starting to
Yes,
work again. So
yes,
it's all thumbs
yeah.
up here.
Well, energetically, if we're in a group or an organization, and just one person comes in with really low energy and low vibrational energy, that must have an effect on the collective energy level. So it brings it down a little bit. And then if you get more and more of it, it brings it down even further. So when
Definitely.
you clear away those energies that are maybe toxic, or
Yeah.
they no longer resonate with you, or they're certainly not working, you either move away or they move away. Then it just allows the vibrational frequency to find its right balance again. So this is
Yes.
what you've described is the moment you decided to go, that was the energy. You came into alignment with the energy that was waiting for that to
Yeah.
happen in this field of potential that we are and are dipping into. And
Yeah.
all these synchronous things start unfolding, which one could perhaps call coincidences, but I don't believe in those. I think it's just its outer world is reflecting what's on the inner world.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
well done on making that happen.
Oh, thank you
And
so much.
you don't need a big back garden to create little beds of vegetables and pots, and you can do
Yeah.
that on a little veranda out the back. So I'm
I'm
sure
really
you'll be able to make something good out of that.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the challenge actually of growing in a different way. And making it sort of like vertical as well as sort of like compact. I think it's gonna be great. Um,
Yes.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting time of recognizing where we have gone off our course and where we're sort of like getting back on it. And it's interesting that you were talking about like toxic relationships and things not being in vibration. One of the things that I realized in our recent sort of cohabitation was that and I didn't realize this when I moved in, but the residing religious belief system was really at odds with the work that I do. There was this idea that as an astrologer, I was, possibly peddling the devil's work or something like that. And there were some kind of pointed conversations as to what is it you do and why would you do that, and when I talk about like God or the universe or source energy or love or I received comments like wrong name or wrong this, and it was really clear that because I couldn't use the same language as the person that I was living with who just wanted to refer to all of that as Jesus, because I couldn't use that word in the same way, it created a really big divide. And there was an encouragement for me to stop doing the work that I was doing or to minimize it with the suggestion that it would be better for my marriage if I wasn't working so much and Carl was doing more of the work. And then I realized halfway along, so okay, so in me stepping back away from my work, I'm also stepping away from the thing that you don't like about me. And I thought, oh, I wonder if that's connected. Hmm. And
Yes.
one of the decisions that really brought Carl and I back together and almost facilitated the end of our living arrangement was Carl and I deciding that we wanted to do some radio work or video work together again, which is how we met. and so all of a sudden we were diving back into what we knew to be our source of love and God and the universe, or whatever you want to call it. And that's the observance of going with the patterns of it, and sharing love, and sharing the conversation with people. And when we decided to do that, that was, I guess, without being defensive, or it was almost like a big swivel on that, but we weren't doing it for that reason. But I'm sure at some level it was taken, it almost created a divide, even though that's not what we're about. It created it put us on a different path that was separating the idea that all dogma has to be this way, and if it's not, it's wrong. Because that what we realized was our way of being, our relationship with God or the universe or whatever, it includes everybody else and all their different religions. And we were living in a home where our beliefs weren't included in their belief system. So it's interesting, isn't it, how we can include others, and we were including others into a situation where we were excluded. And so moving away just feels really great.
Yes.
Because we can be
Liberating.
ourselves again. Yeah.
Liberating.
Yeah, and it is all about our beliefs and living by what feels right to us. So
Yes.
there you go.
Well, our beliefs will definitely shape our behaviors.
Yeah.
So we need to look at what are the behaviors. One of the coaching questions I'm using these days is, which behavior would you like to change?
Ooh.
And that really gets down right into the nitty-gritty of it. Not why it's there, or that I had a
Yeah.
horrible childhood, or I was abandoned, or whatever.
Yeah.
What's the behavior that you want to change? Because we can see and observe those. We can't deny them of ourselves, right? And
Yes.
other people see it. It's very obvious. So that becomes a very good driver. Yeah, that's it. That's what I want to change about myself. Now we've got the foundation of, we've supplanted the old behavior, having recognized it, acknowledged it, and taken responsibility for it. We've replaced that with the new one, and now we're working with this, just tidying up the stuff that keeps the old one going a little bit until a new pattern is developed, new neural pathways have developed, and the new norm becomes the new behavior. And it's all to do with consciousness. At the end,
Yes.
the end result of consciousness for me is two simple things: wise, intelligent behavior. That's all it is. That's all it
Yes.
is. Yeah.
When you said what behavior would you like to change, and I'll be curious. I know we've got people watching, so I'd be really curious to know what it is. And sorry, welcome to the conversation, by the way.
Yes, welcome.
This has been like Rick and I just chatting, really. But I'd love to know if there was a behavior that you wanted to change. What would it be? And like, where do you fit in with this conversation that we've been having about what's happened over the last couple of weeks and what we've been doing over the last decade, and how it's all kind of making sense, I guess, as we step into this new season. I'd love to know what's going on for you. But when you mentioned that question, Rick, what behavior would you like to change? Instantly, what popped in my head is to trust. And in that moment, it was almost like I had a download while I was listening to you. I recognized that our need to prep, or our feeling that we needed to prep, and that we needed to be out of the UK, and that we needed to have land, and we needed to have skills. Yeah, I mean, the only route we didn't go down was getting firearms. If we'd done that, like firearms and getting a buried outside fridge, we'd have probably managed to do the whole prepping thing. But anyway, our aim to prep, I think, is because we didn't trust that life would help us persist in some way. There was this feeling there's some awful stuff about to go down in on this realm that we call home, or in this realm that we call home. It felt like something was about to, like the proverbial SH1T was about to hit the fan the whole time. And actually, that may well be about to happen now. I don't know. Just as we give up prepping, all of a sudden, boom, we need water. But I think it's our lack of trust that we would be okay and we'd be catered for. And I think that's what stopped us from really knowing where we needed to live. We were kind of trying to catch everything rather than going down the direction that we should have done, which was to feel the sense of belonging. And for that, we needed to be around people.
Yes. Yeah. Trust is a big thing, isn't it? I mean, all relationships, for them to really grow and expand and be supportive, have to be based on trust.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what, we're in relationships with everything. We have a relationship with our body, with the earth, with people, with our pets, animals.
Yeah.
So it's all based on relationships, and relationships are the foundation for achievement. So the better, more functional relationships we can have with whatever facet of life, the more we can achieve in that area. And trust is the key factor. It's can you trust yourself? Can you
Yeah.
trust your own innate wisdom? Can you trust your intuition? Can you
Yeah.
trust that there appears to be a grand blueprint that is unfolding, the
Yeah.
evolutionary consciousness of the human family? Can we trust that, and trust and have hope that despite of all this chaos that's going on around us, that
Yeah.
something always good comes out of the chaos? And
Yeah.
if you look at the flooding in Europe recently, people just rallied round to help. Right?
Mm.
It brings these crises bring out the best in people, right?
Yeah.
And it will also bring out the worst, but the best is way far in advance of those that would, the opportunists that would take advantage of people. So everything needs to be based on this personal trust. Can I trust myself? Can I trust my partner? Can I trust
Mm.
my business colleagues, friends, community, and a nation? And
Mm.
then in the bigger picture, can I trust that what's unfolding, despite it may look like we're Leeming's heading for the edge of the cliff, can we trust that we have the free will and the choice to turn left before we get to the edge, or right? We don't
Mm.
have to go ahead. So it's trust is a big one. It's a
Yeah.
huge one, and I'm sure you, as I have had in the past, that trust is broken, and it can be repaired in a
Yeah.
relationship. Boy, it's such a long road. When that trust has
Yeah.
been broken, there's always this suspicion, this underlying suspicion. I
Yeah.
wonder. And the ego mind has a field day with that, right?
Yeah.
They didn't call me for an hour. Where are they now? And who's that? Who are they with? And all that rubbish that the
Yeah.
ego mind kicks up. So we've got to master the mind in
Mm.
order to have that trust again. But
Yeah.
we don't blindly go into it as well, because it needs discernment. To
Mm.
be very discerning, look for the signs.
Mm.
Is what's being said and what's being done. Look
Mm.
for those signs. What doesn't make sense? Trust our
Mm.
intuition. Right? But
Yes. I
when
mean,
we're ready, we can trust again.
that's definitely something that is something I've picked up over the last few months, because when I was asking for more information and like, let's get more specific about this, it was poo-hooed in a kind of almost like a gaslighting narcissistic way. Oh, you're not good enough to, well, if you don't trust that this is going to work, if you don't, you're either part of this or you're not.
Mm.
And if I ever come across that kind of language again, I think I'm going to be quite switched on to it and think,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
something's not quite clear here. Because actually, if somebody said to me, I'm not really sure about this, I don't think I'd be pulling into question their commitment about it. I think I'd be saying, really? Oh, well, let's sit down. Let's clear that up. I mean, there's
Yes.
always choices in how we handle things. So I think if ever my my questions and need for a little bit more information is poo-hooed, I think I'm going to have the discernment and courage to actually say, well, okay, this isn't for me then. I'm sure it's for somebody else.
Yes.
So it's like trusting to move on and be okay with that.
Yes. And trusting our intuition is so, so important. Right? If you intuitively feel something, right, there's no scientific evidence, you just know it. Right?
Yeah.
And that is very easy to be pulled down. People say, you're crazy, you're just imagining it. You're a conspiracy theorist, blah,
Oh,
blah,
yeah, I
blah.
get that as
All
well.
they can do to invalidate your intuition. And as you know, women come down loaded with it much more than men. Men are capable of developing their intuition, but women have it there as a native attribute because of motherhood and knowing that their baby can't express what the problem is or if there is a problem.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, a lot of that has been knocked out by the predominant masculine role of dominance over women by invalidating their intuition. So thankfully now there's a balance, more balance of masculine and feminine energy coming, and that is changing. So,
While you're talking about that, I would also like to add about the male and female sort of imbalance. It is when that sort of balance gets out of kilter, the divine feminine becomes really scary feminine, and it becomes over emotional, and it becomes possessive, it becomes hidden, it becomes all sorts of different things. And then of course it turns off any would-be man that is wanting to use his intuition or appreciate the so-called feminine skills. Then we'll get put off it because all we see is like the neurotic feminine and not the divine feminine.
Yes. Yes.
And also when we're seeing that dominant man, us women are also thinking we can't trust men.
Yes.
Why we can't trust them? Look at them, they're idiots, they're fueled on testosterone. And then of course we don't get to see the divine man either.
Yes. Yes. And that's in both cases, masculine and feminine examples. It's a lack of authenticity because we, instead of being authentic and being able to show our feelings, that they get suppressed, as with young boys in the early days. So they were just told, don't cry, don't be a big baby, don't be a girl. All of those feelings that were coming up naturally were suppressed. And like the volcano, eventually they'll blow their top. So we need to be able to allow people to feel what they're feeling, as long as they're not projecting that stuff onto somebody else, but just to allow them to feel, and then it just lifts, it goes. And one of the challenges for men is because they've never dealt with it or learned how to deal with it. They can't deal with it when their partner is expressing it, feelings. Right? So it gets blown out of proportion, as you say. You fall back on this inauthentic woman that is trying to defend herself against a so-called real or perceived threat. So, and then the male with being inauthentic machoism instead of authentic masculinity. So it's a question of coming back and just, if it comes back to values in a way, if we value integrity and that's being authentic, right, then we better behave authentically and catch ourselves, shine the light of consciousness on our behavior and say, oh, hang on a minute, I just need to change that.
There's something I'd like to pick up on that you shared with us a little while ago, because this whole conversation, whilst it's been, and I knew this would happen, and I'm pretty sure you did as well, but like our conversation has been kind of loose and baggy. You know, we've been happy to sort of explore and kind of reconnect and talk about where we've been going and how we've been doing it and what we've been learning. And I knew it would come together with a theme, because that's how it always works. But what has come out is this idea that as we choose to trust in life, and it might actually go against what we think we want, and you know, we might have those realizations. But as we trust in life, things seem to get better. But you mentioned once that trust is broken, it's really difficult to reclaim. And in this time, I've been thinking, oh, you know, my trust. I mean, maybe this is why I'm attracted to so-called conspiracy theories, because I don't trust authority. And so, you know, I was thinking, you know, like somebody like Carl, for instance, jokes with me sometimes and says, oh, you know, you're on conspiracy mums again. And what he's actually referring to is Telegram. You know, but he kind of puts it down because it doesn't feel very love and light to him. It feels very conspiratorial and a bit dark and a bit, and I see his point completely. But I wonder where the lack of trust came from that led me down that road. And like, where did that lack of trust that I could find my own home, where did that come from? Where did that lack of trust that I would find the right man for me come from? And so when you said, you know, when that trust is broken, it's really hard to regain. I was thinking, how far back do I need to go in my life to find that lack of trust? Like, when was that trust first broken? And was it the first instance of trust being broken as a small child or as a baby or in utero? Was it that first break of trust that has led to this whole kind of going off on a quest in the wrong direction because I just didn't trust that the good could come to me? And I think from my perspective, I think it was when I stopped trusting that life was good. But that's only, you know, thinking about that through my rational brain now, age 46, you know. How do we repair that? How do we go back? How do we find that turning point where we started to pull away from love, or started to pull away from our good, our source of good?
Usually there's one incident on our time track where we make a decision that I can't trust people, or I'm never going to get married, or a result of some traumatic experience. And we can do, you know, we can do regression therapy on that. But there's a underlying that is that we've allowed the mind to be the master and the heart to be the servant. So if we were to trust our heart, systematically start trusting our heart, being guided by our heart, following our heart, and then asking the mind, well, give me a bit of strategy here, give me a bit of logic, give me a little bit of this, but don't stifle what I know to be right coming from my heart. Right? And in doing so, because the heart is the portal to the infinite, it is the portal to source, if we want to call it. So all we've done is we've disconnected from source, right, momentarily, right? And we've never repaired that situation. So if we're carrying it from our childhood, we've got an element where whenever we get into a similar situation, A equals A equals A, then the trust is gone. In another situation where the trust is not broken, it's always there. It's not an issue. So ultimately, all of our trials and tribulations and trauma it's not the actual trauma itself. It's what we did to ourselves by disconnecting from our authentic self, who we are at the core, if only momentarily. And that's what causes the pain.
Yeah. Yes. And well, earlier you spoke about making the journey from the head to the heart, the 18 inches. And I guess there have been times when I've made that journey from head to heart several times. And obviously now it's a much more frequent occurrence. But I've also then made the return journey from heart to head and thought, oh, that's too difficult. That, you know, that brings my life into a much sharper focus and I'm not ready to go there yet. And so I go back up to the head where it feels much safer. And where you can be sort of like, you can live in cognitive dissonance and you can cut massive swathes of your life away and not focus on the things that are difficult. But of course, when you do make that journey from head to heart, all of a sudden your whole life is viewable. You're able to access all these things.
Yes.
And it can be quite scary.
Well, it's very true, because you've just had 3 weeks of absolute proof of this. The moment that you decided, right,
Yes.
which was a heart approach,
Yes.
right, the alignment, the head and the heart came into alignment, and all this synchronous activities came to support that. Right?
Yeah.
And when we recognize that, it becomes very easy to recognize, whoa, I'm out of alignment here. With just, it can be a thought, right?
Yes.
It can be just one limiting belief that we have about ourselves, or some judgment we have about ourselves. We've just gone out of alignment, head and heart. So when we bring it back in there, telling ourselves the truth, not listening to the ego, which is a false sense of ourselves, then we come into alignment and all the magic happens again.
Yeah. Yes, it does. Every single time, without fail. And we've got a lovely heart from Calming Waters Tai Chi, who I believe is my new friend, whose initials are SM. I don't want to reveal your name on live on YouTube, but I think I've got that right. Let me know if I have. And if that's so, you must be up at a really strange time, because if I'm not mistaken, you're around the Seattle area, or like the other side of the world from us. So thank you for joining us anyway. Yes, you were right that our life changed in a positive way very, very recently, with us making 2 decisions. The first one was Carl and I wanted to work again together as part of our work, because it feels so good. And because it's embracing what we believe about life, which is that it's one big conversation, and that we can all learn so much from being in conversation with each other. Even if those conversations get a bit sticky, we trust that we can have those conversations. And then the second decision was, if we don't find the house, then everything goes into storage and we go on a holiday until we do find home. It was like the idea that we weren't going to put ourselves in a home that wasn't right for us, that we were still going to stay in this place of choice, and just trust that the right thing was going to come up at the right time. And literally in the last hour, it really did. And yes, Calming Waters Tai Chi saying it's 1 a.m. here, busy colouring myself back into my heart. And it's funny because my friend who this is has just confirmed it. I've noticed on her Facebook page, she does these beautiful pictures. So she does a lot of colouring in, which I imagine is a real meditative process, because I enjoy doing it with my children. I love it when they're doing that. So as we're wrapping this up, Rick, because I do actually have to go and move home today, and I know you've got a busy day as well, not to kind of like out trump card you here, and say, oh, I'm busy.
You just did.
I did. Right? Yes, I'm moving home today. But what decision did you make very recently that led to you going deeper into your path? And this is like bringing it right the way back round to the beginning of the conversation, where you were sharing with us about this big new step that you've taken. What decision was it that you made that led to that happening?
That I'm ready to step into a bigger game. That was it.
Yeah.
That was it.
Wow. Well, my friend, thank you so much for sharing and being available to me, making this possible. I absolutely adore that we've had this conversation, and I'm really delighted about, your big new decision. When can you talk more about it, or when can you share links to it?
Probably next week, once it's launched and made a bit more public. I'm very happy to share some of that with you.
Excellent. That sounds awesome.
Good.
So I'm going to love you and leave you. You can probably hear our dog going crazy in the background. He wants to go out for a poo, I think.
Yeah. So thank you again for inviting me into your space and sharing it. I love these chats of ours. Thank you for your viewers and listeners. And I wish you a painless moving in.
Thank you so very much.
Enjoy every moment of it, birthing a new life, a new chapter.
Yeah. It feels very good, and I will be hopefully coming to you from our new place, unless there's another curveball and it's like, Rick, we've moved again. Who knows? Who knows? Look, one last comment from Calming Waters Tai Chi. When I had a brain injury, my left and right hemispheres separated. Colouring saved my life and kept me in my heart. I'll come back and watch the replay. How lovely you are, Rick. So in your heart. Rick is absolutely the loveliest person I've ever met.
So, this is my parting shot.
Go on.
Calming Waters Tai Chi. And just a reflection of you, sweetheart. Just a reflection of you. If you can recognize something in somebody, you must have it within you. So
absolutely.
there.
Yes.
Well
beautiful.
done.
Beautiful. And on that bombshell, I think we should absolutely totally say goodbye now. But so much love to anyone who watches this live, because I can see there have been some. And also, if you're watching the replay, we love you. We'll connect with you again very soon, this time next week, pretty much. Lots of love. Bye for now.
Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.